I trained as a management accountant, and my role was to look at companies and understand where they are spending, how to increase their revenue and reduce their costs. Yet at the same time, myself, I had no idea where my own money was going, whether I was on track on retirement, or exactly where I was spending most of my money. And of course, goal is not to have money, to have freedom and live on your own terms, but that's impossible without having the money. And once I started looking at this seriously, something shifted and it completely transformed me. The plan at school was to get good grades, get into good university. The plan at university was to work really hard to get into a good job and then slowly progress in your career. I graduated at a bad time, so I settled for a job, did the career progression thing, got a professional qualification. Days ending at 7, 8, 9 weren't uncommon, nor was doing job beyond my pay grade. But here's where it got a little bit more complicated. Having money gave me a little bit of freedom, ability to go out, to enjoy life. And gradually, as I was earning more and more, I wasn't saving that amount. I was just spending more. And somehow I was always too busy to look at my personal finances and actually sit down and sort everything out. What I know now is that me being busy was a decision that I made. But at the time, it didn't feel like it. It felt like I was genuinely way too busy for things. And I was saving a little bit. I did have money in the pension, but nothing was optimized. Everything was kind of like a guesstimate of how much money I had, where it was. And overall, it was very bad shape. And at the same time, not knowing exactly what I had and where it was, it gave me this anxiety that I carried with me, that little guilt of spending, that little shame of not knowing exactly how much I had. And there were a couple of close calls that almost made me sort out my finances. But then I would always put it back to this weekend, then slowly this month, and then this year. And it always kind of just dragged on, and then the new paycheck came, and I just never got to it. Instead, I convinced myself that since I was a good corporate worker and always got good performance reviews, I would just slowly climb up the corporate ladder and that would sort out my issues. And for a long time it worked, until it didn't. One day, I was sitting in bed in my pyjamas at 1 o'clock in the morning, typing away on my computer. And at that point, I realized I couldn't do it anymore. This wasn't a new thing. I've been doing this for months. And when I say I couldn't do it anymore, of course I could. I just fucking didn't want to. And I thought of typing in my resignation and giving it to my boss. But then the reality set in. The bills I had to pay, my credit card I had to clear, that holiday I was planning for, and also just the fact that I needed a job because I've been in this job for only a few months. Job market was bad. My savings and investments weren't in a place where I felt comfortable to retire. So I continued typing and went into the office the next day. When I was in the office, I saw everyone coming in for this board meeting, all the C-suite within the company. And it occurred to me that none of them looked like me, none of them sounded like me. And I realized back then that this would probably be unachievable for me. No matter how hard I worked, I just didn't fit into that environment of being the board member. The week got a little bit worse. The following day, I met my friend. We were there sipping our lattes and she was sharing very similar experiences she was going through in her company. But there was a big difference. She was very serious about savings and investments. And she disclosed to me how much money she has saved. And it was a lot of money, enough to retire. And at that point, I truly appreciated what freedom meant. I had to go back to the office. She could resign. And even if she had to stay unemployed for a couple of years, she could take that. And since then, setting out my finances has become my default. And it wasn't really easy. There were 6 big things I had to do. The first one was forgiving myself, the old me, that didn't care about the me that was stuck in that mess because of the decisions that she took 10 years previously. The second step was promising to myself that I will do better. So the me in 10 years' time will not have the same issues. Then I started talking to people more, and I realized it wasn't just me who was in the situation. I spoke to a finance director who worked for a big company, and he disclosed to me that also sometimes he wasn't aware of all his spending, but because he got paid at the end of the month, everything will, in his own words, work out. That made me feel a bit less alone. Then I made an exercise of resetting all my passwords, logging into my bank account, and actually making a spreadsheet to understand exactly how much money I had and where it was sitting. And then slowly, surely, I started focusing on my finances. And before doing all of this, I thought that all I would gain is money. And people who were good with money, they seemed like these kind of unicorns that were different from me and all the other people. But what I gained was so much more, and these three big changes. The first thing I gained was my peace of mind. I never appreciated how much anxiety, guilt, and shame I was carrying. Anxiety because I didn't know exactly how much I had. Guilt because I was still spending while not knowing how much money I had. And shame because I thought it was just me in that situation. And as soon as I created that spreadsheet and just saw the numbers in front of me, it all disappeared. And I also gained a lot of clarity. I finally realized why some people were so clear on their personal finance. They just had focused something I lacked previously. They were not any different. And it was very, very sobering seeing a spreadsheet of how much you are worth in front of you, especially when you compare it to how much effort you've put in at work and how much money you have earned but not kept over the years. The last thing I gained were better relationships. A better relationship with myself because I understood myself better and what my direction was. Then better relationships in general, because up to that point, a lot of my friendships were based on spending. My friends liked going out to dinners, theaters, restaurants, and all of that was quite expensive. When I stopped doing those things, some of my friends didn't understand because they were used to the version of me that used to spend money. But I had changed. Therefore, my relationships had to change. So there you go. It was never really the job that was holding me back. The job just facilitated me not taking accountability. And getting serious about money wasn't about being rich. It was about being deliberate in your life and having the freedom to be selective. About making the choices instead of having them made for me. Because the price of being on autopilot was so much more than I realized.